Looking at the headline news of the week, and it's been a busy week. We're joined as we are each week by Will Richmond, the digital news editor at the Herald News. Hey, Will.
Hey, Keith. How's it going?
Good. Very busy week as we get toward the end of June. Let's start right off the bat with the fiscal 2017 city budget. Earlier this week, the Fall River City Council held its last public hearing on the budget, then had a special meeting where they voted 6-3 to reject the mayor's budget. First of all, Will, for those people who don't know, what's the initial ramifications of the rejection in and of itself? Then we'll get into what the mayor had to say yesterday.
Well, the initial ramifications is that the budget can go back into the mayor's hands, and he could tweak it, make some changes at the suggestion of the councilors, and that type of deal. But though, as you mentioned, we'll talk about this a little bit more, that does not seem to be the position the mayor will be taking.
So just so people know, the vote was 6-3 to reject the budget, which, as you say, goes back to the mayor. Yesterday, the mayor had sent out a press release, didn't speak to reporters yesterday as he was preparing for last night's school committee meeting, but sent out a release to say, in effect, that the City Council's vote to reject the budget was actually invalid. Talk about that.
Yeah, they are saying that based on an advisory opinion from the Department of Revenue, that the way the council voted on the budget was an invalid vote. The reason being that they voted on the budget as a whole and not on individual line items, though. Through further clarification, we're not talking about each line item within the budget, but the groupings of departments and that kind of organization. So at this point, the mayor's office is working on that advice. They believe the vote of the council was invalid. It essentially doesn't mean anything at this point, and that the council would have to readdress that vote at their meeting on Tuesday, if they so choose to.
Now, for people who don't understand, the way the budget process, and we've talked about this before on the show, how it works here in Fall River is the mayor proposes a budget. The councilors can ask questions of department heads and the administration about the numbers within the budget, but they do not have a direct say in terms of amending the budget, either line item by line item, or either decreasing or increasing the budget in any way. So it's either a vote up or a vote down. And in this case...
that's not quite true, Keith.
Okay.
The three options traditionally have been to approve, reject, or decrease the budget.
Okay.
The total bottom line has been the previous understanding. They cannot increase the budget.
Okay, but they can decrease the bottom line, but not necessarily a specific line item. Is that correct?
That is what the understanding has been. Okay. For a long time, though, and this is something we are working on today. And actually, I just received an update before I came in here. There may be some questions as to there may be a misinterpretation for many years on the powers of the city council and the budget. So that is something being looked into currently as we speak here on Thursday afternoon.
Oh, all right. So more to come, no doubt about it. But basically, how it stands right now is it's back into the mayor's court, but the mayor, basically, because he thinks that the council's vote was invalid, he probably won't make any changes between now and Tuesday, correct? And just have the city council potentially vote on that again? Is that his thoughts?
From our understanding at this point is he does not plan to adjust the budget, and that is with or without a so-called valid vote of the council. The mayor feels his budget is sound and is the budget that should move forward. So even if the council were to take the proper steps on Tuesday to reject the budget, the mayor is not prepared to make any adjustments at this time, it seems.
All right. A couple of other points on this. The council, though, did vote at their meeting to approve the school department budget. And that also, the mayor says, is invalid because, in effect, they were breaking that out. Is that accurate?
Correct. And it's long been my interpretation that they couldn't vote on separate items. I think there have been past years where that has occurred, but in the end, the vote on the budget as a whole, the total amount, really the only vote that counts.
Mm-hmm.
But this year seems to be throwing everything into flux in terms of interpretations and understandings of how the laws affect the budget vote. So I guess we will see how that plays out.
All right. One final thing we should bring up: if in fact a budget is not approved by July 1, which is a week from Friday, what happens in terms of city finances?
Well, there are two separate possibilities. One, if the council refuses to take another vote, and this is going by the interpretation of the mayor and his administration, if they refuse to take another vote, then state law would indicate that the proposed budget would go into effect 45 days after it was sent to the council. So that roughly works out to July 9th, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
This would mean that there'd be no budget to operate the city between July 1st and July 9th under that scenario.
Okay.
If the city council does vote on the budget on Tuesday and chooses to reject it, then the city goes into a 1/12 budget situation, where essentially the budget gets broken up into 12 equal parts and runs on a month-to-month basis. Now, the wrinkle in this as well is that based on open meeting laws, the council would need to reconvene to approve the 1/12 budget. Because they're meeting on Tuesday and taking that vote then, they can't host a meeting until that vote has been taken
Right.
and they know what they need to do. That would mean that the soonest they could come back is July 1st, which would mean there might be one day, July 1st, in which no budget is available. So
it's a big mess.
yes, that's
Basically, it's a mess.
That's the easiest way to say
And,
it. Yeah.
and we're trying our best to simplify it for the viewers out there, but it is a complicated process. Let me just, before we move on to our other topic of discussion, how will this, in your estimation, impact the relationship between the council and the mayor? It's been 6 months. They've butted heads before. How do you think this will, impact that going forward?
I mean, I've been covering Fall River. I've been at the Herald News for almost 12 years now. I've never seen a mayor take this kind of step. Year in and year out, the council has voted on the budget as a total number, with no problems from the sitting mayors at the time.
Right.
I don't think this is going over very well with councilors. But at the same time, there's a lot of people in the public who feel that the councilors are the ones standing in the way of the budget.
Right.
So, how the relationship between those two parties goes, not too well, but it's the voters that make the difference in the end.
And I believe you was in the Herald about the last time that the city council did reject the budget. It had been some time, right? Did you guys figure that out?
I believe they have never rejected the budget to the point where it reached a 1/12 situation. I do believe early in Will Flanagan's term, a budget was rejected. I think the reason being that the council wanted more money put into education.
Mm-hmm.
But the budget was sent back to the mayor's office. The mayor's office included more money. The council approved the budget before the fiscal year ended. So, I mean, the 1/12 situation will be a pretty new situation for Fall River.
All right, well, stay tuned. And you mentioned the education budget. That dovetails perfectly into our next topic. The Fall River School Committee last evening voted to appoint Matthew Malone as the new superintendent of schools, replacing Meg Mayo Brown, who is leaving on July 1st to take a similar position in Barnstable. The initial vote was 4-3, and then the committee took another vote after that to unanimously appoint Mr. Malone. Malone, some of you may have remembered, was the Secretary of Education for the Commonwealth under Deval Patrick, also a former Brockton school superintendent. What do you think he brings to the table here in Fall River?
Well, he's a high energy guy. Mm-hmm. It appears the teaching staff here, or at least those that are active in the sort of politics of the Fall River school system, have given their sort of blessing to the hiring or the selection of Malone. So if he brings a good relationship with the teachers, that's a positive step. He's obviously well versed in Massachusetts guidelines and policies regarding education and the requirements of the state. He's got connections throughout the state in terms of educational leadership. So, a good strong base there. So those would be some of the positives. He does have some familiarity with the district. He certainly made a number of visits down here as the education secretary, and he knows Meg Mayo Brown fairly well as well. Meg was, well known in the urban education circles. So, from his time as a superintendent in Brockton, as well as in the state position, he's got that familiarity about the district as well.
Any reason to believe that he won't be able to start? I mean, they still have to negotiate a contract, but probably that should not be an issue between now and July 1st, from what you're hearing?
At this point, given the financial situation in Fall River, I wouldn't doubt anything, but
Never say never.
you never say never. But, he currently is not employed in a district, so he doesn't have the hurdle of having to exit somewhere or, wrap up a transition or anything like that. So it should come down to a matter of negotiating that contract. The financial aspect of the contract should be pretty easy to hammer out. The position was advertised for a certain amount. The committee knows what his experience level is. It tends to be these sort of side items that take a little bit more time to finalize, but you'd hope with about a week until the start of July, that they'll be able to get this done.
All right, Will, what's happening at the paper over the next few days?
Well, this weekend we take a look back at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Pool over at Lafayette Park. We're coming up on the 5th anniversary of the tragic death of Marie Joseph, who had drowned in the pool unknowingly, at the bottom of that pool for a number of days. So taking a look back on that situation in Sunday's paper. And as well, we will try to continue to wrap our heads around just what is going on with the Fall River budget ahead of July 1st.
All right, very good. All right, Will Richmond, thanks for joining us. We'll talk again soon.
All right, you have a good weekend, Keith.